Hey, folks, this is Hal Shurtleff with the Camp Constitution Report. This is heard on YouTube, Rumble, and a number of audio outlets, including our flagship Podomatic, Spotify, Amazon, and about a half a dozen others. Today, I'm going to be doing a short little presentation on the subject of term limits. Now, just a few days ago, today is it's Tuesday, November 19th in 2024. But just a couple of days ago, I'm listening to the Jeff Kuna show, whom I really appreciate. He's a great guy, WRKO AM Boston. And you can pick, he's on from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And you can pick his show up on iHeartRadio. And you can listen to past episodes on not Podomatic, but Rumble. They're not live, at least not yet. Anyway, he talked about term limits, and he's a big supporter. I think somebody called in and said, now that we have Congress, we have both houses, we have the White House, et cetera, we'll get term limits passed." Well, and I called in with more than a few reservations to term limits. Now, it's very appealing, throw the bums out, get them all out. And there are quite a few people that we would love to see leave Congress. And the Constitution does not limit the number of terms. So the only way that you can limit the terms of members of the House and Senate is through an amendment. Now, we do have the 22nd Amendment that limited the terms of the president, and that was done in the wake of Franklin Roosevelt. He served he didn't, he ran 4 times as he died shortly into his fourth term. Of course, that was a wartime president, and so they said, "No, we can't have that." George Washington set the precedent way back when, and if you have president with more than 2 terms, that can set up almost like a monarchy, an unofficial monarchy. But the president is one thing, Congress is quite another. And so I know, again, there are a lot of people that have been there a long time, and they're wicked people. Nancy Pelosi comes to mind. That's the first one. But let me give you a few reasons why. And you see, I'm sharing the page with the U.S. term limits because this is an organization that's been pushing for one. But let me discuss term limits, this group first, and then I'll talk about why we shouldn't have them. There's a lot of good people that are involved with this. I have some friends. When I scroll down, I noticed a few people that I know personally. But this group, term limits, they have a lot of good people working with them and for them. But last year, I'm testifying in New Hampshire in favor of an Article 5 resolution that would rescind New Hampshire's only application. And term limits, their local reps and some of their local supporters and members were working with a group called Wolfpack. Now, Wolfpack is the left-wing lobbyist group that's pushing an Article 5 convention. And they were working, coordinating their activities, coordinating their testimony. Now, there's a lot of left-wing groups that you have a common cause, you work with them. But this group, founded by the notorious Cenk Uygur of the Young Turks, one of the most vilest men. I don't know why anybody gives this guy the time of day. You see him being interviewed. He's a triggered leftist. He just lies. He's just a nasty human being. And of course, he's got tons of money. He actually was running for Congress a few years ago, and he openly supported bestiality. Even his cohort, the self-loathing, I can't remember her name. She's actually Armenian. That name will come to me in a few seconds, probably. The Young Turks is the name of. He took the name of the Turkish leaders in Turkey at the time of right around World War I that were responsible for a genocide. Anne Kapazian, I think her name is. Yeah, Anne Kapazian. She's the lady that works with Cenk Uygur. So he basically gives the world or the United States a middle finger, thinking that most Americans don't know who the Young Turks are. Anyway, one of their field reps, I don't see his name here on their website, but he was with them up till sometime last year, is Ken Quinn. Ken was at the Massachusetts Democrat convention a few years ago, eliciting support. So, and they're very proud of working with everybody, right? But they attract a lot of well-intentioned conservatives. But let me just give a handful of reasons why term limits isn't such a great idea. The first one is that the good go out with the bad. So you might get a Nancy Pelosi out, but you get a Rand Paul out too. Okay, that's first. A lot of these elections have been won by very small margins. So you have a lot of Republicans that won their seats, and there's no guarantee that if they're limited out, that a Republican will replace them. Now there are some safe seats, but a term limit amendment would include everybody, good or bad. The second reason is it doesn't do anything to change the ideological makeup of that district. So Nancy Pelosi, now she's in her 80s, but she'll probably serve another 2 terms if she can. But if she's voted out, you're gonna get a Ron Paul type. No, you're gonna get someone just like them, just like her, or someone maybe worse than her, if that's possible. So it doesn't change the ideological makeup, and that's the issue here. If you're voting for big spenders, people who hate the Constitution, people who hate America, and you think term limits is going to be a salvation, you're really mistaken. That's really foolish thinking. Again, there are some districts that are very, very close, and yeah, you might be able to have a little success, but let's look at it. So the only way to do this is through an Article 5 convention or an amendment. So if Congress doesn't pass the amendment, and you need 2/3, and you need 3/4 of the legislatures or state legislators, of course, they might try to change that, although it's not likely they would. Um, the other way, of course, is through an Article 5 convention, which we've never had. And Term Limits USA isn't just committed to an amendment for term limits. They're pushing an Article 5 convention. And you cannot limit it. You cannot limit a convention, no matter what the so-called experts say. Article 5 of the Constitution does not specify that it can be that a convention can be held for a specific purpose, even if all of the all the writing on that particular these applications say so. It's an open-ended forum. And there are a lot of people on the left that would love to have a convention so they can get rid of the electoral college and probably stack the Supreme Court. Now, you don't think you need an amendment to stack the Supreme Court, but they would love to stack it. Maybe not in the next 4 years. The other problem with this amendment, an amendment for term limits, is that it will take a couple of years if a convention was held and all the states passed a resolution. It'd take a couple of years for this to actually take place, and then it would take a while for the actual amendment to pass. It could be a year, 6 months. And what they'll do is that they will most of the term limit amendments I've seen limits 6 2-year terms or 2 6-year terms for Senate and 2-year terms for members of the House. So that's another 12 years before it could really take place. So if it's critical, the time is critical right now, we're looking at maybe 12 to 14 years before such an amendment will actually have any impact. Think about that. The other thing is a permanent lame duck session of Congress. Now, thankfully, we have a small Republican majority in the House. Not to say that they're always going to do the right thing, but a sitting lame duck Congress, which is currently lame duck, that's a pretty dangerous thing. So I encourage people to say no to term limits. I should say an amendment to term limits, because our founders gave us term limits every 2 years. We can have a complete change of the House of Representatives, the U.S. House, and 1/3 of the U.S. Senate. And of course, that also applies for state legislators, in some cases, governors. So what we need to create is an informed electorate. That's the bottom line. And that's our biggest problem. We have people who know very little, and their vote is swayed by some ridiculous attack ad or some ad saying, "Oh, I'm so good for the, I'm doing so much for the district. I work with everybody, and I'm warm and fuzzy, and I love everybody." We need to expose voting records. And let me recommend the New Americans Freedom Index. Just go right to that website, thenewamerican.org/freedom index, and you'll get the voting records based on the Constitution. And if you were to able to inform your the folks in your congressional district. And there's also voting records for state legislators and for others as well. So again, term limits sounds appealing, but at first view, but it is a bad thing, and I encourage people to oppose term limits. That means term limits at the ballot box, yes. Term limits with an amendment, no. And for more information, please visit our website, campconstitution.net. Our YouTube channel, we have loads of incredibly interesting videos on this subject and many others. And until next time, may God richly bless you. Trying to end this. There we go. It's not letting me. All right. There we go. And